This is a brief introduction into Wesley's interiors, which you will be commonly encountering on the Wesley's Moons mod pack. This video will contain information on common tile spawns, interactable objects, interior hazards, and the unique apparatus events on every interior. Each of these interiors hosts their own unique difficulties and challenges, which makes for a fresh experience each and every day. I must state that most of Wesley's Moons contain their own unique passive interior ambient content, of which this video will not be covering. Now let's waste no further time and start with the first interior, which is the Toy Store. Toy Store is most commonly found on the Toy Store themed moon of Velitrios, Neutral, and Fission Sea, and spawns on 21 out of the 26 featured moons. Toy Store's main entrance consists of a medium-sized room, also containing a minimum of 1 chest and a maximum of 3. The loot density is quite spread, with the exception of tiles which contain chests as shown here. Please keep in mind that some of these chests aren't guaranteed to spawn. Chaining these tiles together are a mixture of larger square tiles and nutcracker statue-infested labyrinths, which will occasionally contain single pieces of loot. Also, despite how tempting it may be, don't jump in the ball pit if you value your life. There are 3 types of chests which you can encounter: the loot chest, the tragedy chest, and the explosive chest. The damage taken from the explosive chest is dependent on your proximity to the chest itself. Something to be aware of with loot chests is that there is currently a client-sided bug in which smaller items are clipped into the bottom of the chest and therefore making them invisible to the player. There are 2 types of tripwires which you must keep an eye out for, which are the rigged double barrels and the welcome home trap. Entities cannot trigger these tripwires themselves, however they can take damage from them. The rigged double barrel triggers instantly after being tripped and does 99 damage to the player, consequently leaving you at limping pace for the longest possible duration. These tripwires can either be jumped over or disarmed with a quick and simple interaction. The welcome home trap is the more dangerous hazard of the 2, as this has the capability to insta-kill any oblivious players. After being triggered, the welcome home trap takes half a second to shoot all its guns hung on one side of the door before a single shotgun descends and shoots through to the other side. It is very simple to evade the welcome home trap by simply triggering the trap and running to the side without the wall of guns and promptly positioning yourself to the side of the door to avoid the final shot. Along with the tripwires, you may potentially run into either a chest hallway or a cake minigame tile. Only one of these can spawn on a singular seed, never both, but even seeing one of these is not guaranteed. The chest hallway leads to a cul-de-sac featuring a loot chest. Opening this will trigger the hallway of explosive chests and you must quickly run to safety. However, being aware of this beforehand makes this another easy hazard to evade. The cake minigame, on the other hand, is very challenging. The cake contains a good amount of loot that is normally worth going for around about the end of the day. After starting the minigame by interacting with the cake, you are imprisoned in the tile and have to survive a barrage of shotguns and knives for approximately 1 minute. If you manage to survive past the minute, the cake will explode, doing large damage at close range and low but constant damage to players in adjacent tiles. Finally, the pink apparatus event is probably the least threatening of all the unique apparatuses found on Wesley's interiors. After pulling the apparatus, music will start playing and the face on the wall will turn angry, with the nose eventually releasing a single shotgun which fires straight ahead. The only time pulling this apparatus would be of any issue is if you were to play this interior with the Wesley's Interiors add-on mod, which is not included in the mod pack you will be using for high quota HQ runs. And one final point to note is that the normal apparatus has a chance to spawn instead of the pink one, which will mostly be found in the nutcracker hallway tiles. Now, with everything in the toy store being covered, we can now move on to our second interior, being the Grand Armoury. Grand Armoury is arguably the most challenging interior when it comes to orientation, as it features 5 different vertical levels to play on. Some parts of the armory are only accessible by rising to a high enough level to get across mass pools of acid and lava. You will only come across this interior on moons that were available on version 4 of Wesley's Moons, such as Aldred, Gritar, and Etern. The main tile is always located on the ground floor and is identified by 2 large yellow lights and grated paths to the first level beside them. Loot spawn is significantly more densely focused, as most of the loot you will find will be in distinct tiles, such as power stations and uncommon tiles. Armory's uncommon tiles include a large server room, a fake apparatus tile which comes with its own working recharge coil, and these other tiles which you will see every now and then. Cold storage is a guaranteed tile to spawn and always contains the breaker box. You can disable power to the power stations by pulling the lever that you can find inside of them. Pulling the lever does nothing major, although can be used to tell yourself or teammates what areas have been looted, as pulling the lever will change the color of the light above the power station to green. Power station lights start as yellow when the breaker box box is on and red when it is off. Additionally, when the breaker box is off, the power stations will emit a siren whilst the power is on, indirectly assisting you in finding them. You can also find levers at the large server room and the fake apparatus tiles, although these ones do not emit a siren. Also on Armoury, you will find between 2 and 3 lifts which can be used to navigate over the 5 levels. These are fully player controlled, however take care when there are entities nearby, as their nav mesh connects vertically at all of the lift stops. The main hazard on Armoury are the peekers in unusable doors who will occasionally peer out of them. Running into its line of sight will anger the peeker, forcing the door open and emitting a flamethrower for 6 seconds before hiding behind the door again. As is the case for the toy store tripwires, entities cannot trigger peekers, however can take damage from them. Also during the day, old birds have a chance to turn on at every cycle, however I do not know what the probability of this is, nor if it affects the moon's interior power cap. The apparatus event's danger level is solely dependent on where the apparatus spawns. After pulling the apparatus, the Armoury instantly closes and removes the prompt at all the fire exits as a map-wide spike trap begins to descend on the Armoury. All the information on the timings can be seen on screen now, but to summarize, you have approximately 2.5 minutes to escape the Armoury through the main entrance before being crushed to death. There is no way to cheese this event, even if the apparatus is as close as possible to a fire exit. Also, depending on the position of the apparatus, its tile can fall after being pulled if it is above a pool of lava or acid. And that is everything you're going to need to know about the Grand Armoury, so let's move on to our third interior, the Art Gallery. Art Gallery or Museum is the most open interior out of the 5, spanning over 3 floors. Art Gallery is abundantly more common on more challenging moons, including Trite, Cubitris, and Acidir. Art Gallery is also found on only 15 out of the 26 moons. The first floor is a museum filled with impressive statues of every entity and is abundant in Easter egg content relative to Wesley's moons. Finding loot here is as simple as looking for loot on pedestals and breaking the glass with 3 interaction clicks to access the loot. Floor 2 is the gallery, which is the largest floor of the 3, showcasing paintings on the wall and is primarily made out of square room tiles around the edges of an open floor. Loot will commonly be found in these square tiles either on the floor or on the countertops in the middle of the rooms. And finally, the third floor is a storage floor, which will either spawn as a singular naked tile or a more fleshed out floor with no real distinct layout to it. The storage floor is also the smallest floor, however loot here will potentially be found in denser volumes. Main entrance will always spawn on floor 2. The main entrance door will be hidden by a painting if you go too far away from it. This painting will always depict the Adamant's weak bridge, so keep an eye out for this painting to find your way back to main. Smoke machines can spawn on floor 2 and act like facility steam. You can approach these smoke machines and interact with them to turn them off. The music you can hear right now will always come from the elevator tile, used to traverse all 3 floors. Also, from my own playing experience on this interior, it seems that it is guaranteed for at least one fire exit to spawn in the elevator tile on any floor. Finally, if you're in a rush, you can fall down the elevator shaft down 1 floor at the expense of 50 health. However, falling from floor 3 to floor 1 will kill you. Lassos are a hazard found on the perimeters of tiles which fall from the ceiling when you are close enough to them. Lassos will never fall directly on your head, however be careful, as when you trigger one you may end up walking into it. Running into one of these lassos will do 666 damage and instantly kill you. Mysterious paintings are the other hazard you can find in the art gallery. Mysterious paintings have 4 stages, the first 3 are shown here. If you go within the range of a stage 3 painting, it will go into stage 4, which is the aggro stage. The lasso man will emerge from the painting and swing lassos over a distance for approximately 10 seconds before going back into the painting. This event will only happen once per painting. The best ways to evade this aggro stage is by either going directly behind the painting or simply moving yourself above or below the painting. The apparatus room looks like an auction room filled with chairs facing the apparatus, which is known as the painting. Upon entering the room, alarms will go off and lasers will light from the ceiling. You have 90 seconds to reach the other side of the room without being detected by lasers. If you run out of time or are detected by the lasers, the painting will be shredded and cannot be obtained for the rest of the day. Successfully reaching and pulling the painting will trigger the normal apparatus events, however will also set every mysterious painting to stage 3. Returning this painting to the ship will grant you with 220 credits. And with that, we have covered the art gallery, so let's move on to the penultimate interior, the rubber rooms. Rubber Rooms is the most ambient interior and has the theme of a psychiatric ward. This interior appears on every moon, but most commonly on Motra, Alcatraz, and Utril. There are many large tiles which will consistently contain loot, such as cafeterias, libraries, medical wards, and even the reception tile, which is where the main entrance will always spawn. The breaker box will always spawn in a small storage cupboard normally found in connector hallway tiles, and the door will more often than not be locked. There are also holding cell and padded cell tiles, with the padded cells being your invitation to the rubber rooms. Walking through a padded cell with a fuzzy dead end will transport you to the rubber rooms, which acts as a second layer to the base map. You are teleported vertically into the rubber rooms, not to a random spot on the map, therefore making the rubber rooms almost a shortcut-like area to cross the map efficiently on. Your FOV is decreased inside the rubber rooms, which can be made up of tight, winding hallways or large cubic tiles. Some fuzzy ends can be dead ends, which ultimately U-turn you back the way you came from. There are two main interactive tiles which are made to do their very best to disorient and confuse you. The first of which is the infinite hallway, a hallway where both ends are fuzzy and teleport you to different locations. Here is the briefest rundown of the infinite hallway I can possibly give you. There are always only two exits from an infinite hallway. We will call these exit A and exit B, with both only containing one teleport spot. The infinite hallway is the connector tile between the two and has two teleport spots, one on either end of the hallway. So in this example we will have TP1 and TP2. Teleporting into the infinite hallway from either exit will always send you to TP1. To go from exit A to B, all you have to do is walk straight through the hallway from TP1 to TP2. However, this is not the same going from B to A, as walking straight through will of course teleport you back to exit B. Instead, what you must do is teleport from exit B into the hallway, and then turn back around and go back through TP1 to return to exit A. Be careful when sprinting through these teleports, as your sprint momentum is carried through teleports and you may trigger the teleport twice, sending you back into the hallway at TP1. A neat trick to get you from B to A faster is to walk backwards into the TP spot and look closely for two visual flickers on your screen, which both indicate when you have teleported. After these two flickers, walk forward and you should be back in exit A. The other interactive tile is always connected to the main entrance tile and is called a shifting hallway. Once again, here is the briefest rundown of the shifting hallway I can give you. The shifting hallway has 4 trigger points, 2 in the hallway tile itself and 2 on either side of the hallway in adjacent tiles. Walking through either outer trigger will move the shifting hallway up or down, depending on its current position. Only one inner trigger will work, which is dependent on which side of the hallway has an open exit. The open exit trigger is the one that will be on. These triggers have a cooldown of 20 seconds. The hazards come in the form of normal doors, the first of which being the fake fire exit. If you attempt to go through this fire exit, you will be transported to a linear rubber hallway in which you must run and exit through the fire exit in front of you before the walls close in and crush you. This hazard can be fatal if you do not have sufficient stamina before entering this fake fire exit, so be sure to mark it with something as a reminder to not go through here. After being triggered once, the fake fire exit cannot be interacted with again. The other hazard is the demon door, which occurs randomly to a door which you cannot see through. The hold prompt becomes a press, and when you open, you see a mirrored hallway with an entity's face rapidly approaching you. You must shut the door with a half-second hold interaction before he reaches the frame of the door, in which case he will insta-kill you. Successfully shutting the door in his face will slam the door shut and then reopen to the normal tile behind it. If you wander into a certain hallway, you'll notice a door opening on its own. This is a cordial invite to the haunted apparatus, located at the end of a long hallway. The haunted apparatus event is pretty simple once you know what you're doing with it, as it basically comprises a full stamina sprint from the apparatus room back to safety. Be careful as to not get stuck on an elevated part of the floor, as the tiles in the hallway will tilt, forcing you to slightly redirect your path to stay on course. The haunted apparatus weighs only £8 and is worth 90 credits. And that is us done with the rubber room, so let's move on to our last and most certainly least interior, the Atlantean Citadel. The Atlantean Citadel is another interior which appears on every moon, but you'll only find it multiple times per quota on average on Atlantica, Thalasso, and Tunic. After doing research for this interior, I was surprised to learn that there isn't a whole lot going on here, so let me wrap this up as swiftly as I can for you all. The main entrance to the Citadel will always lead into a Great Hall, which is a massive hallway with multiple levels and doorways randomly spread throughout. The progression is separated into 2 parts of the map, both being found in 2 of the 4 to 7 doors doors that will spawn, which mainly depends on the moon's interior multiplier. Through these doors are a mixture of tunnels and crawl spaces that you must navigate through to potentially find one side of the progress. You will probably run into one or two dead-ended doors, however this isn't the end of the world, as a decent bundle of loot can be commonly found at the end of them. The progression is very generic, made up of hallways and larger tiles with no interactive purposes. The only loot room that has a chance to spawn are these small rooms that always spawn in pairs, both containing loot chests. There is no trick to these loot chests, they're always going to be loot chests and are also guaranteed to have at least one piece of loot in them. The other interaction is located at the top of spiral staircases and involves an 8-second hold to push a lid. This may seemingly do nothing at first, but we will come back to this soon. There are no hazards on this map, and it surprised me too, but do be aware of indirect hazards such as this. And so we move on to the final part of the video, being the Beholder's Eye, the Citadel's apparatus. 2 Beholder's Eyes spawn on the map, one on either side of the progress. However, only the first one that you pull will trigger the event. To access each eye, you must find a dungeon key. Dungeon keys can be found lying around on the map as a piece of scrap. Once you have a dungeon key, you can unlock this door to unveil the Beholder's Eye, standing tall inside a vault full of gold. When you pull this off its pedestal, the Citadel will start to rapidly fill with water. There are 2 ways to survive this flash flood, by either exiting the Citadel through main entrance or a fire exit, or by going up a spiral staircase or a spiral-pathed cave drop. Pushing the lid on the top of spiral staircases will allow you to jump and reset your oxygen timer when the water has reached its highest level. After 1 minute and 45 seconds, the Citadel will stop filling with water and will flush away, allowing you to play the map again. Pulling the second Beholder's Eye does absolutely nothing, and you can take this one for completely free. And one Beholder's Eye weighs 36 pounds and is worth 180 credits. And with that, I have covered everything there is to know about all of Wesley's interiors. I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you learned something, and thank you for watching.